Well,
for today?
the topic today is travel, because
Oh, okay.
I get a lot of uh, people that send me messages or emails about how I get to live my life, like what uh, golden apple was I given to be able to travel as much as I do. And I think that people have a misperception um, about how to travel, or they think it has to be done a certain way. And so I just wanted to have a conversation about, how do I budget? How do I plan? Why do I live in a foreign country? Where do I call home? Um, how do I do this? And because I thought that this was perfect timing, because I just came back from being in America for 2 months.
Oh,
And
you're here for 2 months. Wow. Okay.
yes, yes, a month with each
Being
daughter
where? Sorry, being where for 2 months?
in America.
Yeah. Okay.
I was in
Yeah.
Idaho for a month and in Southern California for a month.
I thought you were.
And people just wonder how I do that. And, like, where do I get to, call
You
home, or what
learn how to
feels,
do that.
what,
How
well,
did you learn?
I mean, do you find that, Linnell, you do a lot of, you know,
Bungee jumping.
okay, there you go. Bungee jumping, like where do you call home? What's home?
Well, I have my birth home where I'm from that, I know my way around, and that's Dallas. And then I have my heart home where, I've got a couple of those where I am and I feel like I belong. And Portland, Maine, or Maine is one. Um, Manhattan is one, which is like totally different. And then France is one. And, I'm sure there are others that I have not been to, but I look at home as like they're two different things. It depends on what you're talking about.
Yes. Yes, I agree with that. I think that for people that have lived in their same state, or same, even town or city that they grew up in, I don't think that they can imagine that. Terry, I know that you love where you live, and how did you decide that that was your place?
Well, mine was more the Dorothy and Wizard of Oz version of what Linnell was talking about. I did not go all over the world. I was born in California and grew up here till in various cities in California, because my dad was in banking and going up his career and moving different towns, but didn't leave the state until I was 12 because of his job. Went to the Midwest, went to the Kansas Missouri border, Kansas City, and culture shock, big time. Okay, I have relatives in Texas that went there from Missouri. The original European Americans, I understand, settled Texas from Missouri, so um, not an unusual migration. But I wanted to get back here. I just like
To
the mindset.
California, or to someplace specific in California?
Well, I don't care for LA much. I have a daughter down there, so I visit, but I like I like the San Francisco Bay Area and the Monterey Bay Area, which is where I've spent most of my life.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I've traveled, Mexico, Canada. I've traveled some, but I just, it's mindset and it's geography, both. I like to be near the ocean. I've lived within 5 miles of the ocean for most of my life. And
Yep.
yeah,
Yes.
and the weather, I can go to snow if I want to, but there's no snow where I live. Where I live, I never need an air conditioner where I live. Never, not once. I've lived here 3 years now. I'm 45 minutes from where I was born, and where I live, there's no air conditioner necessary. I didn't believe it actually until I experienced it, but as an adult, and it's almost all the time it's 50s and 60s, and occasionally.
I think that you need to keep that quiet, Terry.
Yeah, at least for another couple of months.
because you're going to end up with a slew of people coming to your neighborhood.
I know it's like a automatic thing. When it's hot in the Central Valley of California, the hotter it gets, the more the air rises. It pulls the fog right in on top of us like a cooling blanket. And so we just, when they told me I wasn't going to need an air conditioner, well, I didn't have an air conditioner in the Bay Area, but then it was getting hotter because of climate change, and I was going to need to add it, but I moved before that happened.
Uh-huh.
So I got redwood trees, the redwood forest, and the ocean, and anyway, so I'm just more of the Dorothy. Dorothy didn't go. She was in Kansas. She went to Oz. She came back to Kansas. I'm like that. I didn't go all over the world, but I do have sort of a similar story on a smaller scale than Lynette's.
Well, I think that's not a negative or bad or anything. It's the reason that you're there is because you like it, and it's not just because you don't know anything else. It's not because you don't want to explore, right? It's because you love the water, you love the mentality or the environment, socio environment, and that's
Yep.
I think that's what we're talking about when people don't leave. They don't leave because they're afraid or they don't know any better or whatever.
Yes.
So
Yes. Yeah. And the misconception of what it's like to travel or to live, live a life of travel, which I don't really feel like I live a life of travel, because I I'm just looking for stuff to do. So I just like to keep myself busy. I'm not a good relaxer. Like a a beach vacation is just seems like dreadful to me. And so I've never lived in a place other than being in Europe where I can hop on a train or a tram or a bus and be someplace else. And I think that the unique thing about living in Europe is that Europe is actually the same size as the US.
Yeah.
That's why they wanted to create the EU, right? That because it's it's a whole similar thing. So when I say, for instance, oh, I'm going to go to France for the weekend, for instance, or Germany, because Germany is just a 5-hour drive from where I am. So, oh, I'm going to go to Germany for the weekend. And people are like, oh, wow, you get to, like go to Germany. Well, you could, if you were in Maine, you could drive to Manhattan in 5 hours. So, it's like it
train
just
actually, yeah.
right. It just sounds fancier like what, what I do or how I live just sounds fancier and people are speaking a different language. But I think they do speak a different language in in different states. I think they have a different mentality. Even within the state, they have a different mentality. So, I
And
think
different languages sometimes.
I think that some things are very similar. Now, I do have to say that it is more cost effective to travel throughout Europe than it is America. That's my experience from even this last trip. I have a daughter that lives in Idaho and a daughter in right in central Idaho, and a daughter that lives in San Diego. And I can't get there from here. Like like you just can't get there. Like if for instance, I can fly into, my daughter lives in Sun Valley. So Sun Valley has its own airport and it's a remote airport. It's a resort town. So I can fly into there, or I can fly into Boise, which is 2.5 hours drive away. But if I fly into Boise, it's more expensive for me to fly into Sun Valley. But if I fly into Boise, there's only one way to get from Boise to Sun Valley, and that's by bus. The bus only goes once a day, and it's $90 each way. Now, I can buy a round trip ticket to Spain from Poland, or to Italy, or to Greece for $90. So, it's like,
Okay.
when people, think that I have such a, like a wonderful lifestyle, I kind of do, but you guys do too. In America, it's just at a different cost. So
Yes,
my dollar goes further.
Yes. Jim and I took a trip around the United States by rail
Awesome.
over a month. Yeah, it's $10,000. And that was getting off the train and staying with relatives at no cost here and there, but it's still $10,000. But we did it. So I know what you're talking about. It was great to see everything. I would do it all again.
Imagine.
But it was expensive.
Yes, I imagine that it was breathtaking. And actually, my husband and I researched it because he was going to come with me on this last trip. And we actually researched it just to see like where, like maybe we could take one piece of it and go to, like go someplace beautiful. And it was like a no. I mean, it was just a no. Like I just couldn't justify it because I experienced something so different over here that I could mentally couldn't.
Yeah,
justify
the value difference. You couldn't plop the money down because it was just too much of a rip off. It felt like.
I couldn't. So that's excuse me, how I get to travel now. I do have to say, and hi, Laura Lee, by the way. I just want to recognize you. Laura Lee, have you done a lot of traveling?
When I was younger out of college, I traveled a lot for about 4 years. And then I went back to college for another degree, and that kind of stopped it. But once I graduated with a second degree, I thought, I'm free, no animals, no school. But I don't know. I don't want to rain on your parade, but it's just too much work. There's too much work. You know what? And then all of a sudden you calculate, like they say about the train. Well, okay, 10,000. So it's like $150 a day for this month. And I just couldn't justify it. So
Where are you living?
I am looking to have a second home. And so at my age, I don't know if I have enough energy, but I'm packing. I got, this box for this and this for that. And so the 2 homes, and then driving there, and then the cat. And I said, you know what, but Lorelei, listen, if you get this organized to the T, you're fine. Like, why not? So I feel like I'm pushing myself a little bit to live in two homes.
Where
And
are you right now?
I'm in California, Orange County.
Okay. And where's your second home going to be?
It's a good 3-hour trip.
Okay.
It's in Solvang, Santa Barbara area.
Oh, I'm familiar. I love Solvang. Love the food.
Yeah.
so, Linnell,
Yeah.
you have two homes.
I have 1.5, maybe.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. That's true.
Yes.
That's true.
Yes. No, I'm in the States now, and I lived in Austin, and I've had a life transition, and now I'm in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm just renting, furnished, just kind of packed the car with my computer and dog, and here I am. But I do have an apartment, a tiny little apartment in a tiny little village in the center of France in the Loire Valley. And I do hope to move there at least, for a year or two at some point. Next summer is my long target, but I don't know that I travel a lot. I don't know that I'd say I travel a lot, sort of like you, Mary. There are years where I do travel a lot, and then there's years where I don't. So I don't know that I travel because I love to travel. I want to see things, I guess, is more than I love to travel, because it's not fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've got to really enjoy while you're there to go through what you have to go through to get to a lot of places anymore.
I think that the way that I try to bring joy to my travel is, if we're going by car, for instance, traveling through Europe, if we're going by car, I plan it so that we're never in the car for more than 5 hours a day. And then I look at the kilometers or the miles that we would travel in 5 hours. And then I draw a circle like the size of a quarter on the map. And those are the places that we get to stay. So then I research either on booking.com or Airbnb some really cool places, and all within a budget. Like you can go crazy when you travel, and I'm a real stickler for seeing more than spending it on accommodation. Like I don't lowball my accommodation, but
yeah,
I would rather see things than stay in a 5-star place.
I'd rather eat things.
Okay. Yeah. And right.
Yeah,
And
Lorelei, is it Lorelei or Lorelei?
It's Lorelei.
Lorelei. So you had your hand up. What was?
Oh, I was going to say before Mary, but she had some interesting things. But before Mary, I wanted to make two comments to Lynn. Is I set a goal, and like you, for a year, I've been getting rid of stuff. This goes, this stays, this goes to family. And I'm not like that. I'm very impulsive. So for me to say, okay, a year, I'm retiring with the help of Mary through this last year, kind of getting my mind around. Here I'm packing, either I'll rent my house or sell it. But instead of being impulsive, I'm very it was good for a year, like you say about France and stuff. And then the other thing about what Mary said a long time ago is that she always has plane tickets. So she has her money in accounts where she could use to travel. And so that's kind of a set thing. She doesn't go over budget, whatever. But anyhow, what Mary was saying about 4 or 5 hours in the car, I think that's perfect, because otherwise it's just not fun anymore. And then driving miserable. That's really cool. Those were my comments.
Yeah, no, that Mary, that's exactly what I did when I drove here from Austin, right? It's 19 hours, I think, is what Google ended up. And I was like, oh my God. So I said no more than 5 hours. And I didn't necessarily draw a circle, but I mean, I looked 5 hours, where would I be? Looked around, looked at the, like in Louisiana, it's like, where's Cajun restaurant? Can I go do an alligator tour? Me and my dog. So that's, 5 hours is like it, especially if you're traveling with an animal, right? But
I even think for me that's true with train travel though too. Like I love train travel. I like the dining car mostly. I mean, that's really where it's really where I hang out. But it's even the same. Like I can get from Warsaw to the border of Germany on a 5-hour train ride, and it's really great. It's I just have time for a nice lunch with a glass of wine or a beer, and then I get to go back to my seat, take a nap, and then I'm there, and it seems, it's great, but that's kind of like my mark. This flight from San Diego to Warsaw, I had great connection, but I would never do it again because the connection was San Diego to London was a 12-hour flight, and then a 5-hour layover in London, and then London, Warsaw. So it was.
I think it's the layovers that, either way, either they're too short and you miss a connection. God forbid, that has happened to me. I've been stuck in Chicago and in New York, both trying to get back to Austin. Or they're so long, it's like you just wish you could like keel over and die before your flight gets there.
Yes. So I think that the next time I do the San Diego back to Poland thing is, I think that what I'll do is I'll just end up going home to Maine and hanging out there with my family, because then I've still gone through 5 time zones or 6 time zones, and then I've only got another 5 time zones to go, or 4 time zones to go before I get from the East Coast to Poland. And it's not so hard on my body. Like, it's just getting hard on my body as I get older. And I hate to say that, but it's true. Like, I was curled up in a ball in the bed for 2 days, like pretty much incoherent. Thank goodness I have a very tolerant husband, because he didn't come with me on this trip.
Yeah, no.
Have you guys traveled by? Have you been in a sleeping car on a train?
I have been on a sleeping car, and I slept so soundly that I slept through my stop.
I can see how you do that. It rocks you like a baby. It just you're just blissing out.
Yeah, the conductor came and knocked on our door when the train got to its end destination. We were still in our pajamas. And, he was like,
get off in your pajamas.
Time to go. And so we had to take it.
Where are we?
Back to where we were supposed to be.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I'm kind of skittish about the overnight train right now, until I come up with a different system.
That's funny. I love it. In the big window, and looking out at night when you're in bed, looking out the big window and the night sky, and the open places with no people and an occasional light. Beautiful.
Yes.
Night sky.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I like train, I mean, train travel, I think just takes you through some crazy, just some interesting places that you wouldn't have because some of them are not so pretty. And then others are just, breathtaking, right? You
Yes.
got to take the good with the bad. Going through my husband and I got a great deal on a flight from Warsaw to the US. Um, this was probably 4 years ago now. Still such a vivid memory. Where was when the Olympics were in Russia. I can't remember what the name of the town was that they were in Russia, but anyway, they were nobody was going to the Olympics, so they needed to get rid of these tickets, and so the Russian airline had this deal going on, um, that was you could go from Warsaw to New York. It was $500 round trip, and I was like, "Oh, honey, this is a great deal, but we have to do an overnight in Moscow." And I was like, that's okay. My husband's like, he's Polish. He's like, no, that is like not a good idea. I used to work for the Polish. He was worked in the diplomatic corps in Poland. And he was like, I think I'm a marked man. I don't think that that's such a good idea. Anyway, I convinced him to do it. I bought the tickets, but I didn't realize that we still needed because we were staying overnight, we needed a tourist visa. And the tourist visa was $500. So that added an extra $1,000 for each of us, to these plane tickets. So it would have been, it ended up costing me a little bit more actually than it would have. And we had to rent a hotel, and we rented a hotel in Moscow. I refused to pay $300 a night to stay in downtown Moscow. So the travel agent was like, okay, I can put you in a place for $150 for the night. And I was like, that's still, hard to swallow, but, I'll go for it. $150. It's still got to be a decent place. Oh my God. It was quite the ordeal, quite scary, and something that I would not advise anybody to do. Pay the $300, stay downtown. Don't get in a van, an unmarked white van that's going to be pulled up by the second street light in the parking lot. Do not get in that van.
Oh my gosh.
So, doing as Lorelei was saying, like trying to map everything out. I think that you have to be more patient when you do that and look for, as you said, Linnell, the kind of experiences that you want to have along the way so that you get to enjoy the trip more and not just be on I'm going to make this drive in one day. We're going to push through. We're just going to get the travel done. Like that is.
Yeah. Yeah. Because life's a journey, right? So enjoy the journey. But yeah, sort of like 2023. Okay, I won't wish it away. Let's just get to the end.
So I wrote down a couple of quotes about travel that I thought were kind of, I love quotes. I love the visual that it gives me. This is by Jim Rohn, which, he's more of a motivational speaker or leadership or self-development kind of speaker than travel, but this was in a travel magazine. And he says, if you're not willing to risk the unusual, you will have to settle for the ordinary. So I've never been, well, other than the trip to Moscow, I've never been scared. I've never felt like I was in harm's way. Even here in Poland, I'm alone a lot when I'm out and about in where we live. I love to know that I can do it. What travel has given me, so this quote is, Linnell, just in case you didn't hear it, if you're not willing to risk the unusual, you will have to settle for the ordinary. So the experiences that I have had because I decided to live this lifestyle have been crazy. The stuff that I've done, even though they don't really, for the most part, have anything to do with where I live. Like I really could have done everything I've accomplished or done professionally. There's no reason why I could not have done that in America. I just didn't even know it existed. I had to, like, as this says, be willing to risk the unusual to find out new opportunities for what I'm passionate about. But I didn't set out, that wasn't what I set out to do.
Yeah, Mary, I think it's like an education. It's like when you go to college and you major in business and then you discover your creative draw, so you discover things along the way, college or whatever the experience is. And I think that's what I'm getting out of that story that you're telling is it's just another way of learning about yourself, right? And what you can do.
Yes. And I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that at all.
And I would say that the quote is you have to be willing to risk the ordinary to live the extraordinary,
Ah.
kind of is sort of how I'd flip that quote a little bit.
Yeah.
I guess what Lynn was saying is like it always comes down to, extending yourself out, and like you said, not being afraid. I think I have fear. I like my bed. I like my house. I'm a homebody, but I do like to take day trips, but I like to come home at night. I like to go, but I want to come home at night. I'm a homebody, but I need to extend myself out like that and get rid of the fear.
I think I'm a homebody. I would describe myself as a homebody though too. I love my home. Even though I look forward to going somewhere or doing something, I really love where I live. Like I love what I've created here. So I kind of feel, I mean, I would really, I'm an introvert and I really like being here, but I like the rush that I get from challenging myself to do something different because it was like I lived so much of my life in fear. I was afraid of my shadow. I was afraid of life. I was afraid of everybody and everything for ever. For me, it took me getting really ill to say if I'm going to die, then I want to die in a really cool place. And I mean, that's what it was. And that's when we bought a plane ticket and started on this journey. And I still feel this way, which is interesting because this February, I was in the hospital 3 different times. And, I was, laying in the hospital bed going, so, like, is this it? Like, is this got me now? Like, how are my girls going to get here? Is that disruptive to their life? Am I being selfish by living here? Maybe I should really live in America because, you know, and then it was like started slapping myself in the face going, I can't predict where I'm going to die. So like, or how I'm going to die. So like, where is this guilt thinking, if that's what I call it, where is that like coming from? And, so actually it took me to making a plan of, so what happens when I die? Did you know that you can be cremated and you can send your ashes to Switzerland? And there's a company in Switzerland that will make a black diamond out of your ashes. I've contacted them, found out all the details, what needs to done. So I said to my girls, I said, would you wear a black diamond if I had one made? Like if that was the process and everything was all set up, would you, and you were going to get a ring or a necklace or a bracelet or something with a black diamond in it, would you wear it? And I had one daughter that said, absolutely, I want to wear it right now. I mean, I think, no.
Not yet. I'm not
now.
And the other one just, wasn't ready to have that conversation.
Yoga lately, they're saying to take fear and replace it with joy. So I think they're trying to get you to get rid of that fear in your life. And like you say, live.
Well, listen, fear is when we're not living in the present. If we're in the present, if I'm like, the present is clear. And when you feel because you can feel fear, it's going to show up in your body somewhere. For me, I'll get butterflies in my stomach, or I'll find my shoulders going up. And I know that I'm uncomfortable, or I'll squeeze my butt cheeks, which, is terrible because then it doesn't feel good. But I know when I'm in fear or uncomfortable or out of my comfort zone. But I also recognize now that it's because I'm not present. Because when I'm present, I have no stories. There's none of this, my baggage of stories that I'm carrying around, and I'm going to go through and pick out one and say, see, this is why I should be fearful. This is why I can't do this. But if I'm present, then that dissipates. And I think that's where the joy comes from, because joy comes from being here. We're right here.
And I think that a lot of yes, you take your fear and replace it with joy. Well, that's easy to say, right? Like, how the hell do you do that? Right. And it's, so I don't want to get off on a tangent, but
go for it.
I just think that's so unfair unless there's something that will help you to how to do that. Like, I just think that's unfair. And for me, like what Mary was saying, I don't know about the butt cheeks. I don't really squeeze my butt cheeks, but you do feel you have a physical sensation, right? And that, just noticing the physical sensation, just noticing it and trying to figure out, where is this coming from? Why am I feeling this? What is it that is, stop yourself. And once you feel that, like Eckhart Tolle calls it the pain body. I don't know if any of you read any of his The Power of Now and all that, but the pain body, I think that's kind of creepy. I don't like to think about the pain body, but that's what he's talking about. And it's separating that feeling from you, right? It's detaching yourself from this feeling,
Right.
and looking at it and saying, where is this coming from? And then you can start to think, oh, it's coming from because it's about my turn to talk. And, what are they going to think about me if I say the wrong thing, or whatever that thing might be? But just stopping it. And then I'll say another quote, and I don't have this verbatim, but Viktor Frankl, A Man's Search for Meaning, he says something in there between the stimulus and the response. So the stimulus is whatever it is that gets you like afraid, right? The stimulus that creates that. Between that stimulus and your response, which would be the reaction, right? You feel this and you react. You don't really stop to think what's going on. But between the stimulus and the response is a space. And in that space is your power. And so when you feel this and you notice it, you're now in that space. So you notice it and you make a decision to act as opposed to just react. And I've just gone on a tangent, but I think that's so important when someone says, you just take your fear and replace it with joy. Well, you go to hell, you can do that just about as easy as I can, right? I mean, people mean well, but until, what I've tried to do, and until I read that, the space is where your power is. And that space is you taking what was going to be an automatic reaction and you creating a thought and a decision of how you're going to act. That's how you can take fear, decide, and then do joy. So there, thank you.
I often refer to it as the pause.
Yeah, the pause.
Yeah. Terry, what were you going to say?
Just a second. I'm writing this down. When I'm turning aside, I'm writing what you guys are saying. Okay. It's not that you've lost my attention. I am just writing down stuff. Anyway, taking that, adding to what you guys have just been talking about, I have panic attacks sometimes. And for me, it's breathing. My breathing gets out of whack. And so that, the 4-7-8 breathing, you guys are probably familiar with it. That helps me. And in addition to that, during the pause that you guys are describing, I've been advised by my therapist because I have some anxiety, to ask myself what's causing this, when the present circumstance is causing this, and what is it triggering from the past? Is it still true? And is it still applicable to the current situation? Those things that helps get me out of that. Because I mean, sometimes you just connect a past experience. It's just totally not applicable to what you're in right now.
Yeah.
And it's like, and sometimes you just have to control your physical response, like with that breathing. If there are other body responses, maybe there's some other things that people do to kind of tell the body to just shut up, calm down a minute,
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's the reaction, right? Your body is reacting, right? And that pause is this real right now? Does this make sense? Oh, bye, I'm sorry. So that's just what you're describing. And I think it's Byron Katie that says, all right, is this real? What I'm thinking, what is going on? Is it real?
Yeah. Is it true, or is it a falsehood you're telling yourself?
Right.
And so is it even applicable to this circumstance?
Yeah.
In the here and now. And 99% of the time it's not. Occasionally, I'll give you an example where it is true. I'm older, I'm 74, and my responses are not as good as they were driving. and I have to recognize that. And I no longer will drive a curvy mountain road with no rail and no shoulder. I ain't doing that.
Yeah, I don't want to.
I've found.
That's scary.
I know. Well, when you're younger, it's, I mean, I drove really slow when I got caught. There's twice in the last few years where I've gotten caught on those roads unexpectedly, because of Google Maps, and they just want to get you from here to there. And now I will not go on an unfamiliar road till I research it. That's a reasonable. That's like, I'm honoring that, because that's my subconscious telling me you could drive off the edge of that because you are not as good at driving as you once were. And I worked for AAA. I was in underwriting, and I can tell you statistically that that's true. Okay, you peak in your early 50s. Wisdom and body combined to make you the best you are in your early 50s. But
if I had only known that then.
Yeah, that's as good as you're ever going to get in your early 50s.
Whoa, I'm in trouble.
Anyway, I can prove that statistically, but there are very few instances where your subconscious is right, where your amygdala or whatever is right. A lot of times it's just remembering traumatic stuff and trying to apply it to the present when it really isn't applicable to the present.
Yes. Yes. So when, for instance, we talk about or think about these transitions that we go through in midlife, for me, it always has something to do with some kind of, even if it's mental, some kind of travel, because I've got to navigate where I'm going to take my life, what I'm going to do now that I'm supposed to live to 100. Now, what am I supposed to do for the next 30, 40 years that's going to keep me active and alive and feeling good? How do I navigate that? And it's almost,
it's another adulthood. You've got another life, 30 years. That's a generation or two,
Yes.
It's amazing to think about, isn't it?
Yes. And it's a trip.
Well, it makes me want to go to jail or something. Oh, God.
Well, that's exactly that. What you just said, Mary, and that's exactly where I am right now. I've achieved the goals I set out to achieve. I own a house with no mortgage. I'm where I want to live. I am retired. I made it. Now what? And I'm doing volunteering, and I'm seeing my friends and family. But it's kind of scary that I might live to 100 at 74.
Yeah, you've got a quarter century to go.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, it is. I think that the vastness of this and our perception of what that looks like, because there's not, quite honestly, really, there's not a lot of role models out there that are doing really cool things. Right. That are in your circle, even, that you're, with. There's not a lot. So we have to make a lot of it up.
Well, exactly. And the other thing too is I don't want another job, right? I want I want to have meaning, and I want to, leave a legacy, but I don't want another full-time job. But I want to do something. So it's this weird, it's this weird thing that I don't know quite what it is. And that's, the work that, Mary and I are just so, because there has to be a place for women like us to help each other figure what this thing is out. And it might be different for you, and it might be different for me. but there's something.
Yes.
Right. And we just, like Mary said, there's nobody for us to really look at to say, oh, they did it. This is the model. This is, unless Helen Mirren. Helen Mirren is my girl crush. So, maybe I could get cast in a movie.
I mean, you could. You could. You could. Okay, so speaking about legacy, I saw this quote in the airport, on the airport wall. What is and I think that, this span of time that we have is, what are we going to do with it, and how are we going to feel fulfilled? Is, what is the lesson your legacy will share?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times when we think of legacy, we think of, how much money am I going to leave my kids? Like, what am I going to leave them? Instead of, what is the lesson that my legacy is going to share with my loved ones, the world, my community? What's the lesson? And I think that if you look at, because I've been thinking about this, I thought about this the whole plane ride, and ever since I've been back, if I think about describing the lesson that I want people to have, then what that would unfold into is what I'm supposed to be doing. Okay, everybody, thanks so much for showing up. This was great. Linnell, thanks for joining us, and Terry and Lorelei also for putting your input into what's travel, what do we do with this time in midlife. And travel can be a move, it can be, going down the street around the corner, or it can be this travel of how is midlife going to unfold for us? And as that quote says, what is the legacy? What is the lesson that my legacy is going to share? I think that is a fabulous quote. I'm happy that I can share that with you. So ponder that. Let me know in the comments what you think about that quote and how we can continue this conversation for next week. Next Tuesday, I'll see you right back here with Midlife Discussions. Ciao for now.